Let's go ahead and continue with InDesign Classroom Book Chapter 10. Picking up where importing native Adobe Graphics section. We're going to go ahead and play with changing the background of this image. Right now we are working with an image that's actually got many what's called layer comps. Layer comps are the ability to create different types of effects within one image within Photoshop. So instead of having to import multiple different images, you can actually use one image and play with the layer comps within. So let's go ahead and look at 10J. Let's go 10J in our links panel and do go to link so we know that we're on the right one. Let's go to Object, Object Layer Options, and notice that we get a whole bunch of different layers right now. So if I turn off Simple Background, notice that I'm going to do a Control minus so we can see the whole thing. All the background turns off. If I turn the eyeball on green texture, I get the green option, or if I hit purple, I get a purple option as well. Notice if I turn green on and off, it doesn't matter because the purple texture is the one the layer that's most prevalent right now. So let's go ahead and choose, let's go ahead and go with the purple. Let me turn the green off, or it doesn't matter either way, and say OK. So now if I go here to my links panel, click on 10J, if I go to my down arrow, I can see some information, and right here it says layer overrides. It's going to say yes, you've decided to do something different. You chose a different layer than what was originally presented. So just kind of let you know that you've gone through and played with that part a little bit. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we want to move this Orchard of Kings logo up into this peach text. But we want to make it so that no matter what we do with the text, the image will move with it. So we do what's called creating an anchor. So let's go ahead and go to our Layers panel. We want to make sure that we unlock that text layer because we want to make sure that we can go in and play with it a little bit. So go ahead and select that text layer. Next thing we're going to do is go grab that Orchard of Kings logo. Now if I can just try and move the logo, but as you'll see it doesn't really do anything special. I'm going to hit Control Z because we want it to actually go into this paragraph right here. Let's go ahead and go up to your top, do View Hidden Characters so we can actually see those paragraph returns. Let's grab our text tool, type tool, and right before Addie grew up, let's go ahead and hit an extra carriage return, or an enter, so that we've got a place for that logo to go. Let's grab our selection tool. Now we want to grab this Orchard of Kings, but at the same time we need to hold the Shift key and hit the little green square and drag it up right before that return. And notice that green square now turned into an anchor, which means this is now anchored as part of this text. It knows where it needs to stay, which works pretty well. So we've recreated what's called an inline graphic. But we want to be able to play with that inline graphic a little bit. Let's go ahead and, with our selection tool, or with our, nope, I lied. We want to go to our text tool. Let's go ahead and go into, we want to play with our paragraph. So instead of the A, we want the paragraph symbol right here. And we want to add a space before this, we want to give it a little bit more space in between. So right now in space before, right here, you'll see where it's 0. We want to put 0.4. Now nothing's happening because we don't have anything selected. So let's go ahead, grab our type tool, and we want to go right here into our graphic, so it's right at the edge of that graphic. Now we can go paragraph and space before. So remember, you've got to have something selected in order for it to work. So the more we increase it, the more that space before will be. Let's go ahead and go back to 4. So no matter what we do, it'll automatically work that, save that space with it. Alright, so what else can we do? Let's do a Control S and save what we've got so far. We want to make this, it looks kind of weird right now. Remember we've talked about not having trapped space. Let's go ahead, grab our selection tool, and let's grab the frame of that Orchard of Kings. Let's do Shift Control, grab the bottom, and go ahead and make that Orchard of Kings much bigger. Let's go ahead and even make it wrap over into that next column. So you notice that when we did that, the text automatically reflowed to fit what we have. Alright, so what else can we do? Let's go to Window, and let's go to Text Wrap. And we want to go ahead and wrap to the graphic, which is this third one over, the one with the ball. But it's still, not awesome yet. Let's go ahead, add a little bit of space so that it's not sitting right on top. So in our text offset options, let's go ahead and bump this up to 1. Or you can just do 1 and click down. So now we do not have the text sitting right on the edge of our logo itself, which of course makes it better. Alright, we'll click on the pasteboard and hit a W, and you can kind of see better what we're doing. Now, we've learned, obviously don't put peach text on top of a peach hand, but that's not what we're doing today. Alright, what else can we do? Let's go ahead and make it so Orchard of Kings does not have this green background behind it. So what we can do is click on that Orchard of Kings logo. Let's go to our swatches menu, which is over here. Or if you don't have it, go Window, Color, Swatches. Get your swatches menu. And we want to select the fill color, which is this fill color on front. And let's go ahead and hit the / on the keyboard, which is by your question mark, and it'll actually make the no fill appear. So now we have taken that green off the back. So we can still make it better. On our text options, on our contour, let's go ahead and do Detect Edges. And so now notice that it's going to wrap a little bit closer to what we had. What are some of our other options? We can do, right now we're wrapping to the left and right. So let's try just the left. Try just the right. So there's a few different things we can do. We want to do it to the largest area. So that went ahead and moved this in just a tiny bit. I'm going to do Control plus so we can see a little bit more. So what we can also do is, if we want to customize this a little bit more, we can grab our direct selection tool, and notice we get all these individual points. If we wanted to, we can drag those individual points and have a little bit more control over how that is going to wrap. So if you wanted to go in really, really close, you can go in and adjust all those little things and bring it in. So you do have some control over your text wrapping, which is pretty fun. You can make neat lemons and things that way. Alright, I'm going to hit Control S and go ahead and close my text wrap for now. I'm going to do Control minus so I can kind of see what I've got so far. Next thing we're going to do is click your pasteboard so you don't have anything selected. We're going to go ahead and add a Illustrator file to add some little bit more interest right in here. So we've deselected all. Let's go to View, Fit Spread in Window. I'm going to go ahead and close my swatches for now. I'm going to go File and Place. And this time I want to go grab that Illustrator file called 10E. And I'm going to say Open. And you see that I've got a loaded cursor. I'm going to go ahead and click it right here for now. And I don't like how it placed. I'm going to say Undo. Let's go ahead and click right inside here. Now notice it placed inside my graphic. I don't like where it's at, so I'm going to go ahead and use my arrow keys. And I can always nudge it, so it doesn't have to be exactly perfect when you bring it in the first time. You always have the ability to move things around once you get them in. I'm going to deselect and hit a Control S and save. Alright, so I've added even more clutter to my really exciting CD thing. Alright, so let's add a few other things. We can add what's called a layered Illustrator file. So maybe in this case we've got a layered Illustrator file that's got a couple different captions. So let's play with that a little bit. Let's go to File and Place. And we want to grab 10N this time and say Open. I'm going to get that loaded file. I want to go ahead and put it right here above this blue box. And make sure you're doing it just outside the blue box so that you actually have control. You're not sticking in the box. And I've got this Orchard of Kings. And of course I can grab my selection tool and replace that wherever I need to go. Alright, so I've got that placed, but it placed it just as it is. I know there's some other options in there, so I'm going to go ahead and do Delete, and let's do File Place again and see what some of our other options were. So on File Place, if you click this, we were on 10N, Show Import Options, we actually get to see a few new things that we haven't seen before. So let's go ahead and do Open, and it's going to say, okay, what do you want to look at? Let's go ahead and look at the layers. In layers, we see we have one called a Spanish title, an English title, and a layer 3. We want to go ahead and select some of those. Let's go ahead and just place it the way it is right now. Grab our selection tool, slide it over a little bit. And notice that I placed it into the box itself instead of doing it on the outside, so therefore I didn't have ability to keep it separate. That's why you want to place just to the outside of your background instead of inside. Alright, let's go ahead and go to Object. Let's look at Layer Options, and instead of English we want to make this Spanish, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my English off and my Spanish on, and we're going to say OK. So that's one of those things you can do. If you know you're going to be having multiple versions, it makes it a lot easier than having a lot of different elements instead. Alright, so what else do we have? We have what's called an InDesign library that helps us manage these different objects for things we're going to use over and over again. So let's go ahead and go to our pages. Let's go ahead, go to page 5. And we've got our where we just were working with our tree. And we can go View, Fit Page and Window, so we just get that page. Remember, there's always lots of ways you can go ahead and do that. Let's go to File, click outside, do File, and Open. And we want to go ahead and grab this 10K INDL. So it's an InDesign library. And we're going to open. And notice it's going to give us all these different elements that are saved in conjunction with this file itself. So if it's something you're working on over and over again, it's really easy to create these libraries. Alright, let's go ahead and look at the subset button. And we're going to say we want to only find trees. So we're going to do item name contains tree. And we're going to say OK. And it's automatically going to go through that library for you and pull out anything with those names, which makes it a lot easier, especially if you've got 500 items, say, in your file. Alright, let's go ahead and go to our Layers panel and switch to Graphics, because we want to make sure that we're putting items into our graphic file, in our graphic layer. Let's go ahead and grab this first tree, this blue one, and drag it in to this blue box right here. And notice that now tree.psd is in that graphics file. And of course you can take and, with your selection keys, move that around however you like. Alright, let's go ahead and hit Control S to save. So what are some other things that we can do? We can actually create our own InDesign library. Let's go ahead and close this one. Let's go ahead and go to File and New, and we want to hit Library. We're going to go ahead and say no, we don't want to do that for now. Let's go ahead and go to cancel. Let's go to Pages. Let's go to page 3 where we've got this Ricky Records right here. Let's go ahead and File New again. We could have just moved that out of the way. I should have moved it out of the way. So go ahead, say save. Yes, we're going to create our own. Now we want to go ahead and on page 3 with our selection tool, grab this Ricky Records, and we can drag that into this library that we've just created. Now let's go ahead and grab this address box as well and put that in our library. Now we can double click and rename that. Let's call it Ricky Records logo. And instead of untitled here, let's double click and call it Ricky Records address. So now I've got both of those items. Now I don't need them anymore right now, so if I wanted to go ahead and add my Ricky Records here to my page, I could easily open my library, grab my Ricky Records, and drop it right in. I'm going to go ahead and throw it in down here on the bottom of my page. So that's one of the reasons you want to create those libraries, is it makes it really easy to bring elements in and out. And if we look here on our links panel, we now see all the different places that that individual element has been used. So that's pretty cool. Alright, let's do Control minus so we can kind of see what we've got so far. Hit a W. You can see we are making one really busy thing right now. Alright, let's W. Let's go back. Alright, we're going to go ahead and go to File. There's another program in Creative Cloud which you may or may not have installed. If you haven't, you probably want to. It's called the Adobe Bridge, which actually lets you see the different elements that are in your explorers instead of just getting the documents like we get here where we get just the logo of the program. We can actually see what those individual elements are. So let's go to File, let's go to Browse in Bridge. It's going to go ahead and launch Bridge for us. And it's actually opening another program. If you haven't installed it already, this part's not going to work. I do recommend that you do install Bridge. It makes life a lot easier when you're working on things. Alright, we want to go ahead and go to wherever you've saved your document. Mine is on the desktop. So I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to go down and find I have a lot of junk on my desktop right now. We want InDesign Classroom Book Chapter 10. And you'll notice right here we can now see all the different elements that we couldn't necessarily see before, because all it said was PSD or AI. You do have the ability to shrink the size of how big those things are, which makes life a little bit easier. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and shrink my Adobe Bridge down a little bit so that I can actually see things, and I want to be able to drag in and out of Adobe Bridge. So just like you can drag in and out of File Explorer, you can drag in and out of Bridge. Alright, so let's go ahead and go to this one down here. We've got one that's just called Maple Leaf. You need to double click it. Oops. Go back in. I like to right click rename, and rename it Maple Leaf Yellow. So now we've got all three of our leaves are named by color. Let's go ahead and go back to InDesign. I opened up Photoshop on accident. Let's go back to InDesign. Let's go to our pages, and let's go to page 4. And we're going to go ahead and add this leaf in a few places. So let's open up Bridge again, and let's go ahead and drag the maple leaf orange onto the pasteboard in InDesign, and just click and we'll bring it in full size. So what are we going to do with this silly little leaf? We're going to go ahead and put it in this box right here. So I'm going to do a Control plus so I can kind of zoom in and see where I want to be. I'm going to hit Control Shift. Now I can't see the whole thing. I'm going to Control minus a little bit. I'm going to select my leaf, Control Shift, and bring it down so it's going to fit in this box. So Control Shift again, bring it down. If you hit Auto Fit right here at the top, you can just Shift click and bring it down at all without having to do that Shift Control or Shift Command. Now I decide, okay, that's a fair leaf, but I don't really love that leaf. What else can I do with it? Let's go ahead, open the Layers panel, and notice that my leaf did get brought in on my graphics file. If it did not, if it got brought in on a different file, you can always move that green dot to another layer. So I could move it here to my text, I could move it, but I'm in my graphics, so it's where it needs to be. Alright, with it still selected, let's go ahead and go back to Bridge. Drag it over a little bit. And I don't like the red one. I want to go ahead and put in, or the orange one, I'll put the red one in instead. So all I can do is take the red, bring it over, and it's going to remember the scaling because we've already told it the size of the box to go into. Let's try the yellow one. Let's go ahead and try the yellow one instead and bring it in. So notice that because I've already made the box, it's already going in and creating that perfect yellow leaf. I can decide I want to rotate it a little bit, make it fit a little bit differently. So you have a lot of different options for playing with, rotate a whole bunch, your different types of graphics. So it's completely up to you as to what you're going to create. So let's go ahead, Control minus, close up my links, my pages, and do a W, and you can actually see both pages of your CD insert. So we've learned a lot of different things about playing and importing graphics. I want you to know there's a lot of different ways to do things. A lot of it's slightly more advanced than where you're going to be at this point, but that's fine. I want you to know that the options are there. Once again, File, Package. Make sure you have no errors. Yes, I want a package. Please go ahead and save. Continue. First initial, last name, InDesign, Classroom in a Book, Chapter 10, packaged. Make sure it's in my Lesson 10 file, and make sure that you've got your copy fonts, your graphics, your links, your IDML, your preset for your PDF, and high quality, and package. Once you get there, you'll go ahead, go to your File Explorer, right click, Send to, or Compress File, and that's the one you're going to turn in.